Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig, a matter of outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another episode in our mini series on leaders. Yeah, I know, we talk about leaders a lot, but after all, they are your single most important piece of gear, or at least tied for your most important piece of gear, which you've probably heard me say ad nauseum at this point. So in our last episode, we talked about the first variable on the leader package that is of importance to you, and that's the length of the leader. Okay. And if you remember back, we kind of talked about a great place for you to start and probably stick to through most of your career is to keep your leader approximately the same length as your fly rod. And then in that episode, we gave you a couple of scenarios where you may want to go longer on your leader, and we gave you a few scenarios where you may want to go shorter on your leaders. So I'm sure there's a link right here. If you can't see it there, it's down in the description. So today, let's talk about the next variable you need to be really concerned with. And when I say really, that's underlined. Really concerned with this X rating, or if it doesn't have an X rating, it's going to give you the diameter. Actually 12 thousandths, 13 thousandths, 14 thousandths. And what that's telling you is that's telling you the diameter of the tippet, of the thinnest piece to which you're going to tie on the fly. Okay? And this is so important that you understand this, that no matter who makes it and no matter what the pound test, I can't stress this enough, is that pound test has nothing to do with delivering a fly. Absolutely nothing. So it doesn't matter what the pound test is until you start thinking about the fish. But you're not going to catch a fish if you can't deliver a fly. Okay, so let's take a look at this. What does that X mean? Okay, and 0X, again, no matter who makes it, means that it's 11 thousandths in diameter. 1X equals 10 thousandths, 2X equals 9 thousandths. You're probably already noticing a pattern, but as we've said before, best just to let him finish, Clark. Actually, it was Randy Quaid that said that. 5X equals 0.006, 6X equals 0.005, 7X equals 0.004, no matter who makes it, no matter what the pound test. So here's what you don't need to memorize this, okay? The important thing to remember is that 0X is fairly fat and 6X or 7X is really thin. So just like with fly sizes, the higher the number, the smaller the fly. Well, in this case, the higher the number, the thinner the diameter of that tippet, okay? So you can forget about that. So 0X is fat, 7X is thin. There is such thing as thicker than 0X tippet. Of course there is. It's just a measurement. Okay, so 0X is 11 thousandths. If your fly is really big and really heavy, you may go to 12 thousandths, 13, 14, 15 thousandths. You're off the X chart. This X chart was created for trout fishermen. I mean, I'm a saltwater guy. I don't even use my good buddy Flip Pallet. I don't even think he knows what X means when it comes to tippet, because they're dealing, when you're fishing bass, big game, pike, muskie, we're dealing with 14, 15, 16, 18 thousandths tippet. There's no such thing as 5X. That's in the world of big game fishing. 5X is a trout thing. So anyways, what does this mean to you when you're buying, selecting, or even building your own leader? Okay? Essentially, you must match the diameter of the tippet to the size, the weight, and the wind resistance of the fly. So the size, the weight is going to be a consideration of the fly, and the wind resistance of the fly. You've got to have a tippet that is thick enough and stiff enough to cast that particular way to fly. It's very, very simple, friends. I literally get emails and phone calls every single day here at the shop, which, again, you know this from our Q&A series, we relish those questions. We love your questions. Make sure you send them to email or call us on the phone. We can't get to questions via comments here on YouTube because we have to work at Mad River Outfitters. But so many times I have people say, well, I was fishing a size 14 dry fly and my casting was great. And then I put it on a size 6 woolly bugger and my casting went to crap. Well, did you change this tippet size? Did you change leaders? Did you alter that leader? Did you change to a thicker tippet? Well, no, nobody ever told me to do that. Such and such big box store, this is very common. Big box stores will tell you, oh, you can fish with 4X for everything you ever do. They might as well tell you that you don't worry what size your shoes are. Just buy any size shoe, you'll be fine. I mean, you could not say anything dumber, to be honest with you. This is grade school physics, friends. This is not high-level stuff. This is grade school physics. I'm going to give you 2 rules to help you determine what size tippet to use. And actually 3 or 4, but 2 big ones. Remember this one always, okay? Big, fat fly, big, fat tippet. Teeny, tiny fly, teeny, tiny, thin tippet. So the higher the number. If it's a tiny little fly, you might be using 5X, 6X, 7X. If it's a big fat fly, you might be using 0X or even bigger than 0X, say 12 thousandths, 13 thousandths. If it's a medium-sized fly, you're going to probably be 2X, 3X, somewhere like in that ballpark. So big fat fly, big fat tippet, little tiny fly, little tiny tippet. Super simple. Here's another way to help you with this, somewhat more mathematical. Take the size of the fly. Let's say it's a size 12 fly. Divide that by 3 or 4, and it will give you a guideline. So a size 12 fly, divide by 3 or 4, you know that a size 12 fly is probably going to be best fished on 3X or 4X. Now, I know a couple of things come to mind. How do you determine what size a fly is? Well, don't worry. You'll get good at it over time. It's not that tough. When you buy flies, try to remember what you bought. When you arrange them in your fly box, maybe try to arrange them somehow by size. Or you can get one of these little gadgets if you're a trout angler. You can get this little gadget. It's called the Griffin Hook and Hackle Gauge. You can, of course, find it on our website. And you can lay your hook right along there. It'll tell you what size it is. Pull out your calculator, do the math, and now you have a guideline or a ballpark of what tippet you should be using. If it's a super fat fly, you're not going to get in trouble. There are no tippet police if you pull out some 2X and throw it. If it's a really tiny fly, or let's say you think that the fish can see your 4X, so you want to go thinner. Well, there's no tippet police. You can throw it on 5X. If you can cast it and it allows a lifelike presentation and you can still fight the fish. Go back to episode 1 in this series where we talked about the 3 purposes of a leader. It must deliver the fly to the target, it must permit and even enhance a lifelike presentation, and it must provide a robust enough link to survive the fight of the fish. So you can't go so thin that you can't land the fish. And you can't go so thick that it splashes down in the water and scares the fish. So, but this divide by 3 or 4, so a size 6 fly, so those folks that email us all the time and say, hey, I switched from a size 14 dry to a size 6 woolly bugger and my casting went to crap. Well, divide by 3 or 4, and we know that we need to be on 1X or 2X with a size 6 fly. If you're on a size 18 fly, divide by 3 or 4, you're going to be 5X or 6X tippet. Okay, so you've got a couple of ways. The first way is very simple. If you have a heavy fly, go with a heavy tippet. If you have a light fly, go with a light tippet. And then you can also do this math and it gives you a guideline. Now, why do we do it by 2 numbers? Well, a size 12 fly could be a weighted nymph. So it's going to be heavier than an unweighted dry fly that's designed to float, right? Makes sense. So if it were the heavier nymph, I'm going to err on the 3X, the smaller number, because it's thicker tippet. If it's a size 12 dry fly, I might err on that thinner, the 4X side. Okay, so again, this is a ballpark based on the size, weight, and the wind resistance of the fly that you're trying to cast. If you're trying to throw a big fat bass bug, a hair bug, again, a big box store will tell you, well, just get some 6-pound and you'll be fine. No, friend, you got to be 12 thousandths, 13 thousandths on your tippet, which might be, depending on who makes it, might be 20 pound. It might be 25 pound test mono. This is really such a different game than what you're thinking, and it's such a different game than spin casting or bait casting. In fly fishing, the leader has to push the fly. The leader has to carry the loop that you form with the tip of your rod. In spin casting or bait casting, it's limp monofilament that just has to follow along on that heavy bait that you threw. It just goes along for the ride and then provides a connection for you to retrieve that fly, or that lure, excuse me. So we get this question a lot too. Well, can't I use just stren or something for a leader? Not really. It's much different than what you're going to buy in the fly fishing world. What we use is much stiffer than spin casting or bait casting line. The size of your tippet is so very, very important. It has to do with all three steps of the purpose of a fly fishing leader. And if you get that wrong and you can't deliver the fly, you can't properly deliver the fly, well then you're just simply not going to be fly fishing. So, I encourage you to go back and watch. Of course, we've covered this before. We've done this before. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. We did a series called Getting Started in Fly Fishing. In fact, the first one I did was in 1998. I believe. That was on VHS tape, which kind of tells you how old I am. But we redid that entire series in maybe 2017, 2018. And you can go to episode 9. It's linked right here. If you can't see that link, it's just your device. It's there. But if you can't see it on your device, go to the description in this video and go watch episode 9. I might look a little bit younger, maybe a little bit thinner, but just a different presentation. I might say a few different things, but it's not going to hurt to reinforce because this is so critical. There's also a couple of stories that I tell, one in particular about a great customer named Mr. H and how he was selecting leaders based on pound test, which I'm guessing many of you probably still do, and you cannot ever buy a leader based on pound test until you get to step 3, or number 3, in the purpose of a leader, and that's that it must survive the fight of the fish. So I'm not saying that you should never look at the pound test, but the pound test does not deliver the fly to the target, and that is the number 1 purpose of a leader. So your tippet is so very important. The size of your tippet. Now, a lot of people, let's go ahead and touch on this, and then in an upcoming episode, I'll expand on this. Let's say, real quick, that I'm fishing a 9-foot 4X leader. Okay, so here's where it's looped onto my fly line. I've got approximately 7 foot of taper to that leader and approximately 2 foot of tippet. Your tippet is probably somewhere around 20, 22, maybe 25% of the leader length, depending on the entire length. So let's say that this is a 4X tippet. A lot of folks ask this question, and again, we'll do a full episode in this series coming up on this. But let's say I wanted to switch to from a size 12 dry fly to a size 18 dry fly. Well, that 4X is going to be a little too fat for the 18 dry fly. It's also going to get too much energy to that 18 dry fly, and it's going to smack down on the water. So I want to go to a lighter tippet. You don't want to just cut off your entire 4X. I need to leave a little piece of 4X in there. So this used to be tippet, and now it just became taper, and now I can add my 1.5 to 2 foot of 6X. And I just, with one snip, and I tie one simple surgeon's knot, I just created a 6X leader without having to change, okay? Now, let's say I wanted to turn around and throw a size 6 woolly bugger on 2X tippet. Well, you can still make one snip and tie one knot, but you're going to have to do this. You're going to cut this back to where it's approximately 2X, And now you're going to add, say, 1.5 to 2 foot of 2X tippet. You just made your leader a little bit shorter, but if you remember from our last episode, that's not a bad thing when it comes to throwing a heavier fly, especially a streamer. So you'd have to cut it back to where it's approximately 2X, because you cannot attach 2X to 4X or 6X. Remember, you can't ask a skinny kid to push a fat kid. This always has to be tapered from thick to thin. You can't add thick to a thin tippet. It has to be constantly, you have to be adding thinner as you add. So just touch on that real quick. Again, we'll do a full episode on that and get around to it. So as always, friends, your leader's your most important piece of gear. It might be tied with the fly, but what good is the world's greatest fly if you can't deliver it with the leader that you have? So your leader's your most important piece of gear. Make sure you understand this stuff. And again, make sure that you understand the importance of the diameter of your tippet. As always, if you have any questions, send them over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com, or you can pick up the phone and call us. We are actually real live people that work in a fly shop. This is what we do for a living. Customer service is actually what we do for a living. Fly fishing is what we love and what we sell. So pay attention to your leaders, friends. It's so, so, so important. It's way more important than your fly rod or your fly reel or your Patagucci jacket. And go back and watch episode 9 in our Getting Started in Fly Fishing program. So as always, friends, subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out, and that way you won't miss an episode. And hit the like button. That makes us feel good. And stay tuned, because we've got a lot of fly fishing content coming your way. And oh yeah, make sure to watch this video and then also watch that video there. And heck, just watch them all. We appreciate it.